Okay, so first of all, a very warm welcome to all of you to today's session. Now, I will initially guide you that what are we planning to do in today's session, okay? And once I explain it to you that what basically we are planning to do in today's session, then we will formally start that work, okay? So let's start. Just to introduce myself, my name is Afmp4 and I am a tutor of ACCA P4 Advanced Financial Management. I am based in Pakistan, and together with this Advanced Financial Management, I teach a number of other ACCA papers as well. Now, if we talk about the other ACCA papers which I am teaching, they involve financial management, that some people call off skills module as FM or F9. I teach PM performance management, which some people call F5. I teach audit and assurance, F8, and then I teach AFM, advanced financial management, that is called as P4. Okay, so these are the 4 papers which I teach. Okay, and together with these papers, I've been teaching these papers since the last 12 years. And as far as these 3 papers are concerned, I've been teaching them for the last 15 years, okay? And numerous of our students have secured nationwide, worldwide place winners positions in almost every attempt of ACCA. And I belong to Mirchawala Sahab of Accountancy, a very leading name of ACCA education, okay? Now, what is the purpose of these webinars? Now, before the examination, what I used to do is that it has been my practice since the last 8-10 years that 1 week before the exam, like it's exactly 1 week left before your exam or 5 or 6 days before your exam, I basically conduct a research on what topic I expect, okay? And obviously, when I check my research, there are many topics which are likely to pop up in your exam. And then once I research that, okay, these topics are expected in the upcoming exam, then I find or try to find that which is the most technical one out of these. So as per student feedback and my research, whichever topic I find the most technical one, I conduct the webinar of that topic. Okay, I conduct the webinar of that topic, solve 1 or 2 or maybe 3 past paper questions from that particular topic. Because in my opinion, if you have a sound research that which topics are expected and you conduct webinars for that particular topic and students solve some exam questions with you 1 week before the exam, the technical topic, which as per my research is likely to pop up in the exam, and we are solving 2 to 3 past exam questions of that particular topic, this enhances your confidence very, very much. Okay, now I'm formally starting this webinar. Now, during the webinar, there can be connectivity issues or connection may be lost, very rare chances, but still the connection may be lost. So if the connection is lost and I am offline, so you might be wondering what will happen next, whether we are able to continue this session or not. So in order to prevent that connection lost, first of all, we will prepare a WhatsApp group. The link of that WhatsApp group is shared with you all in the messages section, in the chat section. Okay, I would advise every one of you immediately join that group, because if during the session there is any connectivity problem, we will immediately notify you via that WhatsApp group, and this group will remain activated till the exam date. So obviously there are going to be many students who will be joining this group, because many students don't prefer live session. They will take the recording of that later. So there will be 100, 120 people joining this group. Until the examination, you can coordinate with each other as well, discuss things with each other as well. Believe me, this is also going to improve your performance very, very much. Okay, so I am repeating one last time that I've sent you a WhatsApp group link in the chats. Please request to all of you to join it. Okay. Okay, now, so many people have joined the WhatsApp group. So let's just start now. Okay, now you all are going to give exam in March 2022 attempt, exactly 1 week from today. Okay. Now you all know there are going to be 3 questions in the exam. Okay. And obviously these 3 questions are always spread among some major topics. There is going to be a question on investment appraisal. There is going to be a question on risk management, be it currency risk, be it interest rate risk. Okay. And there is going to be a question on mergers and acquisitions. Obviously, you cannot prevent these topics from not coming in the exam. No matter they are difficult, no matter they're easy, you have to face them. And there are sometimes messages from people, okay, this topic I'm finding a bit tricky. You cannot do anything. Something is tricky, something is not tricky. You have to handle both of them. Okay. And these are basically the core areas of financial management. So one cannot expect these particular topics to stay out of your exam. Okay. Now, as far as the risk management section is concerned, as far as this risk management section is concerned, you know that in risk management, there are usually 2 types of risks. One is the currency risk, and one is the interest rate risk. One place you are hedging currency risk, one place you are hedging interest rate risk, right? There are 2 risks, currency, interest rate. And to deal with these risks, you have studied in your course a number of hedging techniques like forwards, like futures, like options, like FRAs, like forwards, like futures and interest rate, as well as the currency rates, as well as options. Okay, these are the few techniques you have studied. Apart from these techniques, you have studied a technique called swaps. Okay, currency or interest rate swap. Now, when people study these techniques, they find swaps a bit difficult. They find swaps a bit difficult. Now, this is again based on my research and feedback that people are saying that swaps is difficult. Okay. And in my expectation, there can be a question of swap in your coming attempt. In my opinion, in my research and my expectation, there can be a question on swaps. Okay. So this is the topic which I'm going to cover in my webinar today, the swaps, and I will be solving 3 past exam questions with you. on swaps so that when you leave this class, you have a complete command on swaps. Okay, so let's just start. I've explained you everything regarding what we plan to do. We are going to cover swaps topic, and in this swaps topic, I will be discussing 3 past exam questions with you. The good thing is that you will understand swaps as well, and you will be doing 3 past paper questions with me as well. So let's start firstly from what a swap is. Okay. Okay, now what basically a swap is? When we talk about swap, swap is basically when 2 companies are involved. Okay. And these 2 companies exchange or swap their loans comprising of fixed rate and floating rate. Okay, what exactly a swap is? In swap, there are going to be 2 companies. Okay, obviously to make a swap, there have to be 2 companies. Okay, they exchange means swap their loans of fixed rate and floating rate. Okay, obviously there are 2 types of loans available in the market. One is fixed rate loan, one is floating rate loan. So in swap, 2 companies exchange or swap their fixed rate loan against a floating rate loan, a floating rate loan against a fixed rate loan. Okay, and both companies end up getting loan at lower rate than they would get without swap. Okay, in swap, 2 companies exchange their fixed rate loan and floating rate loan with each other, and the end result is that both companies end up getting loan at lower rate than they would get without swap. So this is the core advantage of swap. Obviously, if both are getting a rate higher than they originally get without entering into swap, why they would enter into the swap? So in swap, both will exchange. Now you don't know how they will exchange. I will teach you that. But in swap, both will exchange their fixed rate and floating rate loans with each other, and both will end up getting loans at lower rate than they would get without swap. Okay. You can copy this if you want. Okay, now I just gave you an idea that in swap there are going to be 2 companies and both will exchange their fixed rate and floating rate loans with each other, and in the end, by entering into swap, both will end up getting loans at lower rate than they would get without swap. Now the big thing is that how to make a swap. The big thing is that how to make a swap. Now, making a swap, different tutors have different strategies, but since you are taking my class, you need to follow my strategy. Now, maybe that would be different from the examiner strategy, but we will end up at the same answer. Okay. How to make a swap. Now, making swap is just a matter of two-step approach. Making swap is just a matter of two-step approach. Step one, making swap is just a two-step approach. Okay. What is step one? Step one is find the comparative advantage due to swap. Find the comparative advantage due to swap. Now I've invented a new term, comparative advantage. Find the comparative advantage due to swap. Now, please pay attention. There are going to be two companies. Any order. Okay. There are going to be two companies. Any order. Okay. Usually, the company two will always be the counterparty. Although it doesn't matter if you rearrange the columns, write counterparty first, company one later, it won't matter because any order is allowed. But obviously, if you talk about suggestion, the main company is going to be the first column, which is entering into the swap, main company entering into the swap, and counterparty column two. Main company entering into swap, column one, and the counterparty with which swap is taking place, company two. Okay, this is the columns which you have to make. The main company entering into the swap, column one, comparative advantage, column two. Okay. Try to find the comparative advantage. Main company entering into the swap, column one, and counterparty, column two, company two. Try to find the comparative advantage that if one company takes fixed rate and one company takes floating rate, one company takes fixed rate, one company takes floating rate, what net benefit they are getting. One company takes fixed rate, other takes floating rate. What comparative advantage they are getting? I will teach you how to find this comparative advantage, how to get this net benefit through comparative advantage. You have no idea who will take fixed rate, who will take floating rate, who will take fixed rate, who will take floating rate. You have no idea. You need to check and you need to decide who will take fixed rate, who will take floating rate on the basis of benefit we are getting. You will decide who will take fixed rate and who will take floating rate by checking comparative advantage. Whichever is getting the best comparative advantage, most comparative advantage, we will take that. Okay. There cannot be any rule before starting the question that who will take fixed rate, who will take floating rate. Obviously in swap, one is going to take fixed rate, one is going to take floating rate, but it entirely depends on the comparative advantage. Who will take fixed rate? Who will take floating rate? That entirely depends on the comparative advantage, that whichever option is giving the most comparative advantage, maybe company one fixed rate, counterparty floating rate, or counterparty fixed rate, company one floating rate. We will decide who will take what rate based on comparative advantage. Write this step one. This is not going to make your things 100% clear until we go to the question, but please follow the strategy which I'm saying. Copy this step one. Okay, now the first step is company one, main company, first column. Okay, and company two, counterparty, second column. It doesn't make any difference, but since you're following my strategy to make things easy for you, main company, company one in the first column, counterparty, second column. Who will take fixed rate loan, floating rate loan? We cannot decide. It depends on the comparative advantage. We will check by placing fixed rate, floating rate in both companies, that if they take this, what happens, if they take this, what happens, and then try to find the comparative advantage, and then decide who takes fixed rate, who takes floating rate. And then step 2, again, same column, main company, company 1, first column, counterparty company 2, second column. Okay, now this is very easy. Step 2 is very easy. You need to record outflow of loan taken. Record outflow of loan taken. Okay, record outflow of loan taken. Maybe fixed rate, maybe floating rate, depends on step 1. Maybe fixed rate, maybe floating rate. Which company took fixed rate, which company took floating rate, this depends on step 1. So record outflow of loan taken, whoever has taken fixed rate, whoever has taken floating rate, as per step 1. Okay, cancel floating rate first, cancel floating rate first. Okay, always cancel the floating rate first. Okay, then cancel fixed rate. Don't disturb the steps. First, always cancel floating rate, then cancel fixed rate. This will end up with net effect. Okay, this will end up with net effect. I'm not showing plus minus because it depends on the upwards calculation. Once you get the net effect, charge bank fee. Once you get the net effect, charge bank fee. And once you charge the bank fee is a cost outflow, you will get the effective rate of swap. This is how things work. Record outflow of loan taken from step 1, because in step 1 you will decide who has taken what. Company 1 has taken fixed or floating, company counterparty has taken fixed or floating. First, always cancel floating, then cancel fixed, get the net effect, adjust bank fee, that's it. Okay, please copy this format. So let's just make this format on a spreadsheet as well, so that you are able to see things in a much better manner. Okay, so I have told you about the format of swaps, right? And when we talk about the format of swaps, I've told you to put the main company, company one, in the first column, counterparty in the second column, okay? And decide which rate loan they will take, whether fixed or floating rate. Depends on the net benefit, also called comparative advantage. We will always prefer the option to go which is offering the most high percentage of comparative advantage, be it a fixed rate loan or be it a floating rate loan. Okay. And once we have done this, this is called the step one. This is step one. And after this step, I have told you that we will move towards step two. And as far as this step two is concerned, it's again the same order, company one, company two. Okay. And we have to record the loan rate taken. Okay. Then we have to cancel floating rate first. Okay. Then we have to cancel fixed rate. Once you cancel the fixed and floating rate, you get net effect. Okay, then you adjust bank fee, and after adjusting bank fee, you're getting the final answer, effective rate of swap. Okay. So let's just convert the discussion into question practice. Okay. So as I told you, we're going to do multiple past exam questions here. The first question, obviously it doesn't matter what order we follow. Let me just see it. Let's do this question first. Fitzharris Company, and this question relates to September-December 20 attempt of P4. You can find it on the website as well. September-December 20 attempt of P4. Okay, so let's start this question. And since this class is focused on swaps, we will only deal with swaps portion. However, if when you try the other portions yourself, maybe later, if you find any queries, you are most welcome to share that on the group. If I am busy, definitely some of the students will definitely help you out there. Okay, so let's start this Fitzgerald question. Okay. Fitzharris is a large construction company. Its treasury department uses a variety of derivatives regularly to manage interest rate and commodity price risks. Fitzharris CEO has recently been reviewing how the treasury department uses derivatives, in particular options, to hedge risk. She has raised queries about aspects of option pricing, which she does not understand. In particular, she wants to know the impact upon option price of the time until expiry of the option and interest rate. Transactions to be hedged. Today is 1st August. Fitzharris plans to borrow an amount of 48 million on 1st December to finance a major construction project for a period of 3 years. Its treasury department has decided to hedge the risk associated with its borrowing, as there is some uncertainty about how interest rates will move over the rest of the year. The current central bank base rate is 3.7%. Base rate is basically the interbank rate, LIBOR. Base rate is basically the interbank rate, LIBOR. It's 3.7%, but predictions in the media suggest it could rise or fall by 0.4% by 1st December. Fitzharris can currently borrow funds at floating rate of central bank rate plus 50 basis points. That means Fitzharris can currently borrow at LIBOR plus 50 basis points, it's 0.5%. Fitzharris can currently borrow at LIBOR plus 0.5% floating. Fitzharris can currently borrow at floating, LIBOR plus 0.5%. Fitzharris Treasury Department is considering hedging the interest rate by using an interest rate swap arranged collar. Let's repeat the question again. Fitzharris is a large construction company. Its treasury department uses a variety of derivatives regularly to manage interest rate and commodity price risk. So Fitzharris is a construction company. Treasury department uses a variety of derivatives regularly to manage interest rate and commodity price risk. Fitzharris CEO has recently been reviewing how the treasury department uses derivatives, in particular options, to hedge risk. She has raised queries about aspects of option pricing which she does not understand. In particular, she wants to know the impact upon option price of the time until expiry of the option and interest rate. Okay. Transactions to be hedged. Today is 1st August. Fitzharris plans to borrow amount of 48 million on 1st December to finance a major construction project for a period of 3 years. Treasury department has decided to hedge the risk associated with borrowing, as there is some uncertainty about how interest rates will move over the rest of the year. The current central bank base rate is 3.7. I told you base rate is LIBOR, but predictions in the media suggest it could rise or fall by 0.4%. So base rate is 3.7 and predictions suggest it could rise or fall by 0.4%. Fitzharris can currently borrow funds at floating rate of central bank base rate plus 50 basis points. Fitzharris Treasury Department is considering hedging the interest rate risk by using swap or collar. So the important point to note that Fitzharris can currently borrow funds at base rate LIBOR plus 50 basis points floating. Okay. Now the heading of swap, pay attention. Fitzharris Bank has found a possible counterparty for a swap with Fitzharris. The counterparty can borrow at floating rate of base rate LIBOR plus 130 basis points. 130 basis points is 1.3%, or a fixed rate of 4.8%. Okay. Fitzharris Bank has quoted it a fixed rate of 4.6%. So Fitzharris Bank has quoted, above it was floating rate, now fixed rate of 4.6%. Now, counterparty can borrow at floating rate of LIBOR plus 1.3% or fixed rate of 4.8%. The bank would charge a fee of 5 basis points. 5 basis points means 0.05% to each party individually to act as the intermediary of the swap. So bank would charge a fee of 5 basis points, 0.05% for each party. Both parties would share equally the potential gains from swap. Okay, both parties would share equally the gain from swap. Now, if you look at the question, you have clearly got information about Fitzharris, the main company, and the counterparty's fixed rate and floating rate. Counterparty and the Fitzharris. Both companies' fixed rate and floating rate details are present. This will always be present in the question. There is never a chance that both parties' fixed and floating rates are not given. If that is the case, you cannot solve the question. If that is the case, you cannot solve the question. So ensure that fixed rate and floating rate percentages are found in the exam, because it would be given. It's your job to find it. Okay. I'm not reading callers. Calculate in percentage terms the result of the hedging strategies that are being considered for the 48 million loan. Fred Fitzharris Treasury Department is considering hedging by swaps and collars. So calculate in percentage terms the result of hedging strategies. So you need to explain or calculate the result of hedging strategies, swap and collars. We are not doing collars at the moment. Okay, we are only discussing the results of hedging strategies, that is swap. Okay, so let's start. Now we need to calculate the result of hedging strategies in the hedging strategy swap. Okay, so in order to make a swap, there is a two-step approach, and I have written the format as well. I don't know who will take fixed rate loan, who would take floating rate loan. I don't know. Okay, I don't know who will take the fixed rate loan, who will take the floating rate loan. It entirely depends on which is giving the higher comparative advantage. Okay, who will take the fixed rate loan, who will take the floating rate loan. It depends on the higher comparative advantage. Now, company one, just check. Okay, this is rough work. Fitzharris, first column. And company two, counterparty, second column. Okay, company one, Fitzharris, first column, and company two, counterparty, second column. Okay. At what rate, fixed rate, both are getting loan? Go back to the question. Counterparty can borrow at fixed rate of 4.8, counterparty 4.8. And Fitzharris Bank has quoted a fixed rate of 4.6. So Fitzharris Bank has quoted a fixed rate of 4.6 and counterparty can borrow at fixed rate of 4.8. So Fitzharris Bank fixed rate 4.6, counterparty's bank fixed rate 4.8. Okay. Also check floating rate of both. Also check the floating rate of both. This is the most key step, right? Fitzharris can currently borrow funds at floating rate of LIBOR plus 0.5%, 50 basis points. So Fitzharris is LIBOR plus 50 basis points, 0.5%. Counterparty can borrow at floating rate of LIBOR plus 130 basis points, 1.3%. So counterparty, LIBOR plus. Okay. This is, you just copied information from the scenario. Now I don't have to look at the question. That's it. I don't have to look at the question. Fitzharris, main company, first column, counterparty, second column. Okay. You are not going to the official steps, formal steps. You are not going. First, you are doing some rough work. Fixed rate, right? Both of them 4.6, 4.8. Floating rate, right? Both of them. Fitzharris LIBOR plus 0.5 and counterparty LIBOR plus 1.3. Who will take what loan? I don't know. We will decide. Now let's suppose if Fitzharris takes fixed and counterparty takes floating. If Fitzharris takes fixed and counterparty takes floating. Understand the concept of comparative advantage. Now let's suppose Fitzharris takes fixed, okay, and counterparty takes floating, okay. Now if Fitzharris takes fixed 4.6, the comparative advantage is 0.2% gain. If Fitzharris takes fixed at 4.6, the other was getting at 4.8. So the comparative advantage is 0.2% gain. And if counterparty takes floating, the comparative advantage is LIBOR plus 0.5, LIBOR plus 1.3, 0.8% loss. So the net comparative advantage would be 0.6% loss. What option did I check? If Fitzharris takes fixed 4.6, obviously other was getting at 4.8. You took at 4.6. So it's 0.2% gain. And counterparty takes floating. So you are getting floating at LIBOR plus 0.5, counterparty LIBOR plus 1.3. You take floating, 0.8% loss. So this would be a comparative advantage of 0.6% loss, right? Check other as well. If Fitzharris takes floating and counterparty takes fixed. Now, if Fitzharris takes floating, and counterparty takes fixed. Now, if Fitzharris takes floating, LIBOR plus 0.5. So if Fitzharris takes floating, LIBOR plus 0.5, the other is getting at LIBOR plus 1.3. If Fitzharris takes floating, there would be a comparative advantage of 0.8%. Okay. And counterparty goes for fixed. So instead of 4.6, counterparty opt for 4.8. It was a loss of 0.2%. So what is gonna be the net comparative advantage here? The net comparative advantage is 0.6% gain. Which option is better? Who takes what as a comparative advantage factor? This seems better because in that it was 0.6 loss. Here it's 0.6 gain. So comparative advantage is in the second option. Fitzharris takes fixed. Sorry, Fitzharris takes floating, second one. And counterparty takes fixed. Okay, this rough work is now complete. Now you can copy in step one that what is the solution? Fitzharris takes floating. So Fitzharris, the company one, let me change the name, Fitzharris. It's gonna take floating, LIBOR plus 0.5%. Outflow, obviously loan is outflow. And counterparty takes fixed. Counterparty is taking fixed. So what is the fixed of counterparty? 4.8%. Okay. And it was getting at 4.6%. So the comparative advantage was 0.2% loss. And here it was getting LIBOR plus 1.3. So this resulted in 0.8% gain. Okay, so the net impact was 0.6% gain. And when the net impact of 0.6% gain, so it's mentioned that the gain will be shared equally between both of them. So 0.3 goes to Fitzharris and 0.3 goes to counterparty. Okay. This is the most key step. Decide the comparative advantage. Okay. If you have any questions in it, please ask me, then I will move forward. If you have any questions from this on how to find comparative advantage, I cannot just learn it. I will be provided fixed and floating rate percentages. I just have to check that if Fitzharris goes for fixed, okay, 0.2% gain because it's getting fixed less than counterparty. And counterparty goes for floating, it's 0.8% loss because it's getting at higher rate. We are in 0.6% loss. Around the way, other way, if Fitzharris takes floating, 0.8% gain, other takes fixed, 0.2% loss, net gain, whichever option is there, we will write that. And obviously, whatever is the gain is, it's written that all gains of the swap will be shared equally. If you have any queries in this, please ask me, checking the comparative advantage. Okay, so I have received no questions. That means the concept is initially correct. Remember, I can just guarantee you that for both companies, fixed rate and floating rate will be given. You have to check the comparative advantage yourself and decide who will take what. Please pay attention to this. Who will take what? Please pay attention to this. Just check. It's a rough work that if first one takes fixed rate, whatever benefit getting compared to both, other takes floating, obviously both will not take fixed, one takes fixed, other takes floating, what advantage you're getting. And if one takes floating, other takes fixed, what advantage you're getting. Whatever is most advantageous, opt that and write that in step one. Whatever gain from swap is, you will share it equally. Okay. Now, second step. Please understand the second step. Same columns. Company one, it's Fitzharris. Company two is counterparty. Loan rate taken. Now I have told you in the format that loan rate taken comes from step one. In step one, you have decided who will take what. In step one, you have decided who will take what. So who will take what? Fitzharris takes floating rate, right? Fitzharris has taken floating rate. That's what comparative advantage is producing. So loan taken is always, remember, an outflow, because you have incurred a cost. You have taken a loan. It's an interest cost outflow. LIBOR plus 0.5%. LIBOR plus 0.5% outflow, and counterparty take fixed. So it's 4.8% outflow. Remember, loan taken, these are interest payments, right? Fixed rate, floating rate. So these are outflow. Loan taken. Okay, outflow. Okay. Cancel floating rate. Cancel floating rate. Now, whatever LIBOR plus 0.5 it is taken, cancel floating rate. Now, how will you cancel this floating rate? You will cancel this floating rate by creating an inflow. You will cancel this floating rate by creating an inflow, LIBOR plus 0.5. So obviously, when this inflow is created, then only this can get cancelled. Okay, so cancel floating rate by creating this inflow. But for this inflow to be received to Fitzharris, counterparty has to bear an outflow. For this inflow to be created in Fitzharris, counterparty has to bear an outflow. Okay, otherwise, how will inflow be created? If one party is creating its inflow, the other party has to create its outflow. Okay, so this cancels floating rate. Okay, now cancel fixed rate. Okay, how will the fixed rate be cancelled? Now, fixed rate was taken by counterparty. Fixed rate was taken by counterparty. So you need to create an inflow for counterparty. You need to create an inflow for counterparty because it's outflow, right? So you need to create an inflow for counterparty. Now we need to cancel fixed rate. So fixed rate is taken by counterparty. To cancel it, we need to create an inflow for counterparty, but counterparty's inflow will be created like this. The inflow will be to the counterparty. So Fitzharris has to bear outflow. If inflow is to be making with the counterparty, Fitzharris has to bear an outflow. It will bear outflow fixed rate. At what fixed rate Fitzharris is getting? It's getting fixed rate at 4.6. It will borrow at 4.6. Borrow to create inflow for the other. Borrow at 4.6 fixed, but will deduct its net benefit of 0.3. Borrow at 4.6. What says fixed rate borrowing loan, but deduct its benefit. So it will borrow at its fixed rate 4.6, but deduct its benefit 0.3. So it will bear an outflow of 4.3%. And this 4.3% outflow will be an inflow of 4.3% for counterparty. I'm repeating it again. Okay. Step one is easy. Step one is easy. Loan taken. Okay. Loan taken, we have decided here. Fitzharris takes floating and counterparty takes fixed. So loan taken, Fitzharris floating, LIBOR plus 0.5, counterparty fixed, negative 4.2. Loan taken, it's interest outflow. Cancel floating rate. So cancellation will be by showing inflow to Fitzharris, LIBOR plus 0.5, but to show inflow of Fitzharris, there has to be outflow from counterparty, LIBOR plus 0.5. Then cancel fixed rate. So fixed rate will be cancelled by showing an inflow for the counterparty. Okay, but for inflow of counterparty, you have to show outflow in Fitzharris. Fitzharris will show an outflow of fixed rate. It's borrowing at fixed rate 4.6. Deduct its benefit of swap 0.3. So net outflow 4.3 and 4.3 inflow for that. Once you do it, that's it. Find the net effect. Now, net effect is mathematical calculation. Net effect, it's mathematical calculation. Now, what is the mathematical calculation here? Please pay attention. Negative LIBOR plus 0.5 and positive LIBOR plus 0.5. Negative LIBOR plus 0.5, positive LIBOR plus 0.5. Cancel. So what is the net effect remaining? Negative 4.3%. Right? Because negative LIBOR 0.5 and positive LIBOR 0.5 got cancelled. Both got cancelled. In this column, only 4.3 negative is remaining. Check the working of this column. Negative 4.8. This is negative 4.8 and positive 4.3. Negative 4.8, positive 4.3 creates negative 0.5. Negative 4.8, positive 4.3 creates negative 0.5. Negative 0.5. Negative 0.5 adjusts into this LIBOR plus 0.5, which is also negative. So in negative LIBOR plus 0.5, when you adjust this negative 0.5 as well, this makes it negative LIBOR plus 1%. LIBOR plus 0.5 is already negative, and you adjust negative 0.5 as well. So negative 0.5 already, adjust negative 0.5 as well. It makes LIBOR plus 1% negative. Okay, this is the net effect. Bank fee. Bank fee is 5 basis points for both. So 5 basis point means 0.05%. This is also an outflow. 0.05%, 5 basis points. This is also an outflow. Okay, once you do it, you get the effective rate. Adjust the effective rates. See the mathematical working again. Negative 4.3, negative 0.05 creates negative 4.35 because negative is positive. Negative 4.3, negative 0.05. This creates negative 4.35. Negative LIBOR plus 1, negative, and negative 0.05. This makes it LIBOR plus 1.05% negative. Okay, LIBOR plus 1 is negative and then 0.05 also negative. So this makes it LIBOR plus 1.05 negative. And these are the effective rates of swaps. Okay, now there are things which are tricky in this. Okay, I want you to copy this. I will repeat this again. And that's why I've taken 3 past paper questions so that by the end of the class, you have a sound command of this. Okay, so please copy this. Okay. So Manur, coming back to your question, if he takes 4.6 for company 1 and 4.8 for company 2. So company 1 taking fixed rate means 0.2 benefit. Floating rate company is getting LIBOR plus 0.5. See, ignore LIBOR, it's 0.5. And the other is taking at 1.3. So 0.5 and 1.3. Fitzharris was getting at 0.5. They're taking for 1.3. Extra 0.8. Extra means loss. Zubia, because you are finding the effective rate for the company. So benefit is for the company, whoever is adjusting the fixed rate as per my format.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम भाई, कैसे हैं आप? अहमद भाई, ऑनलाइन से you can teach online. Can you tell me कि commercially आप क्या चार्ज कर रहे होंगे on hourly basis?
Okay, now let's move towards the next question now. Okay. The next question which we are going to do is, share your question will share details who gets what from the gain. Okay, you will see it in the further questions as well. So now let's move towards the next question. This question is from March-June 17 attempt of ACCA, and it's a Buryex company. So let's start this question. Okay, the question states, Buryex is an international transport operator based in the Eurozone, which has been invited to take over a rail operating franchise in Vetonia, where the local currency is the dollar. Previously, this franchise was run by a local operator in Vetonia, but its performance was unsatisfactory and the government in Vetonia withdrew the franchise. Buryex will pay $5,000 million for the franchise immediately. Government has stated that Buryex should make an annual income from the franchise of $600 million in each of the next years. At the end of 3 years, the government has offered to buy the franchise bike for $7,500 million if no other operator can be found to take over the franchise. Today's spot rate between euro and Vetonia is euro 0.1430 equals $1. Predicted inflation rates are as follows. Inflation rates for Eurozone are given, for Vetonia are given. Buryex Finance Director has contacted its bankers with a view to arranging a currency swap, since he believes this will be the best way to manage financial risk associated with the franchise. The swap would be for the initial fee paid for the franchise, with a swap of principal immediately and in 3 years time. Both these swaps being at today's spot rate, Buryex Bank would charge an annual fee of 0.5% in euro for arranging the plan. So Buryex Bank will charge a fee of 0.5%. Okay, Buryex Bank would charge a fee of 0.5%. Buryex would take 60% of any benefit of the swap before deducting bank fees, but would then have to pay 60% of the bank fees. So see, Shahryar, as far as your question was concerned, the solution is here. Buryex Bank would charge a fee of 0.5%. Buryex would take 60% of the benefit of the swap. This time it's not equally. 60% of benefit is taken by Buryex Bank and would have to pay 60% of the bank fees. Borrowing rates are, okay. Buryex company and counterparty, 2 columns are given. Fixed rate loan are given, 4%, 4.8%. And in the other country, floating rates are given. It's bank rate plus 0.6. That means it's LIBOR plus 0.6 and bank rate LIBOR plus 0.4. Okay. In order to provide Buryex board with an alternative hedging method to consider, the FD has obtained following information about over-the-counter options in Vetonia from a company's bank. The exercise price is Vetonia dollar per euro. Premium is percentage of amount hedge. And there are 2 rates are given in options. Call options, put options, assume discounted at 14%. Okay. I want you to read this question once more. Please read it once more. Okay, so in my opinion, you have read the question again that BurryX is an international transport operator based in Eurozone. It has been invited to take over a rail operating franchise in Metonia. Local currency is dollar. Previously, this franchise was run by a local operator. Okay, BurryX will pay 5,000 million for the rail franchise immediately. The government has stated BurryX should make an annual income of 600 million at the end of 3 years. Government has offered to buy the franchise by okay. Spot rate is given, inflation rates are given. BurryX finance director has contacted his bankers with a view to arranging a swap, since he believes this will be the best way to manage the risk. Swap would be for the initial piece paid, swap of principal immediately in 3 years' time, both swaps being at today's rate. BurryX bank would charge a fee of 0.5% for swap, bank piece 0.5%. BurryX would take 60% of benefit and fees would also be 60%. Okay, so it's 0.5%, 60% fees, 0.3% on BurryX, and the remaining 40% is not on BurryX, 0.2%. Okay, borrowing rates are for fixed rate is also given BurryX and counterparty 4%, 5.8, and the floating is also given bank rate LIBOR plus 0.6 and bank rate LIBOR plus 0.4. And alternative methods are options and exercise prices given. Okay, I'm not seeing options in detail because my focus of this webinar is swaps. Requirement B1, 4 marks. Calculate the annual percentage interest saving which BurryX would make from using a currency swap compared with borrowing directly in Metonia, demonstrating how the swap will work. Okay, so calculate the percentage saving would make from a swap, demonstrating how swap will work. So you need to demonstrate how swap will work. Okay, now company, it's BurryX here, first column, counterparty in second column. Okay, let's move here. BurryX, counterparty, 2 columns. Okay, just write the fixed rate and floating rate because percentages for both will be given, then we will find the comparative advantage. So BurryX fixed rate is 4 and counterparty is 5.8. So %4 and 5.8%. The fixed rate percentage for both is given. And floating rate, it's BurryX LIBOR plus 0.6, LIBOR plus 0.4. Okay, now I will try to find the comparative advantage because I don't know who will take fixed, who will take floating. Okay. Now, who takes what? The fixed rate and floating rate for both is given, but who takes what? Okay, let's check option 1. If BurryX takes fixed rate, this one, and counterparty takes floating, this one, check the gain loss. If BurryX takes fixed rate, I am seeing fixed rate BurryX taking 4% instead of counterparty 5.8. It's getting 1.8% gain. Comparative advantage if BurryX takes fixed rate 4 instead of 5.8. Okay, compare 1.8% gain. And if counterparty takes floating, so if counterparty is taking floating, this again makes it LIBOR plus 0.6 instead of that LIBOR plus 0.4 less, 0.2% gain. Okay, so the comparative advantage here is 2% gain. Okay, if you say that BurryX, I'm checking option 1, BurryX takes fixed. So BurryX fixed means 5.8 instead of 4. So 4 instead of 5.8, 1.8% gain. And obviously counterparty takes floating, LIBOR plus 0.6, it takes LIBOR plus 0.4 at less, 0.2% gain. Comparative is 2% gain. And Check second option. If Bury X takes floating and counterparty fixed. Now, if Bury X takes floating, LIBOR plus 0.6. So if Bury X takes floating, LIBOR plus 0.6, expensive instead of LIBOR plus 0.4, it's 0.2% loss. Okay. And if counterparty takes fixed, counterparty is taking fixed 5.8 instead of 4%. It's 1.8% expensive, 1.8% loss. So it's 2% loss. Which is the better option? This one, that Bury X takes fixed, counterparty takes floating. Bury X takes fixed and counterparty takes floating. Bury X takes fixed, counterparty takes floating. This is resulting in the most comparative advantage. And now you can basically enter into step one after the rough work. That remove this. This is Bury X counterparty. So what has been decided? Bury X takes fixed. So if Bury X is taking fixed, it's an outflow of 4%. Counterparty is taking floating. It's an outflow of LIBOR plus 0.4%. This is what is finalized. Bury X taking fixed, counterparty floating. Compare that to show the comparative advantage. Bury X taking fixed, counterparty was offering at 5.8%. So Bury X taking fixed gives you a comparative advantage of 1.8%. And he was offering floating at LIBOR plus 0.6. So counterparty took floating. That means there was a gain of 0.2%. So the net comparative advantage is 2% gain. And remember, 60% Bury X. So 60% of 2%, it's 1.2% Bury X, and 40% to counterparty, that's 0.8%. Okay, this is our first step. I hope you are clear for this first step. Okay. Let's move towards the second step now. Now, let's move to the second step. First step is very easy. Change it, Bury X counterparty, loan rate taken. You have already decided that Bury X will take fixed. So outflow of Bury X is 4%. And counterparty takes floating. That's what is decided, right? Bury X takes fixed. And counterparty takes floating. So Bury X takes fixed 4% outflow and counterparty takes floating. So what is the outflow of counterparty? LIBOR plus 0.4%. Okay, Bury X takes fixed, counterparty floating. Now always cancel floating rate first. Remember, always you need to cancel floating rate first. If you are following my strategy, cancel floating rate first. If I'm canceling floating rate, so how will this floating rate get canceled? By adding the outflow. LIBOR plus 0.4% is outflow. Create an inflow, LIBOR plus 0.4. This will get offset, cancelled. But to create this inflow in counterparty of LIBOR plus 0.4, Bury X must bear an outflow of LIBOR plus 0.4. Okay, to create an inflow of counterparty LIBOR plus 0.4, BurryX must create an outflow of LIBOR plus 0.4. Now you need to cancel fixed rate. Okay, now how will this fixed rate get cancelled? This is something a bit tricky. How it in every step, not just in this question. Fixed rate will be cancelled. So how will the fixed rate be cancelled? To cancel this fixed rate, you need to show an inflow of 4% fixed rate. Okay, but to create an inflow of fixed rate, cancel fixed rate will be shown by showing a fixed rate inflow. Now to create a fixed rate inflow, counterparty has to bear a fixed rate outflow. Counterparty has to bear a fixed rate outflow. So how will counterparty bear a fixed rate outflow? Counterparty will borrow at fixed 5.8 and deduct its benefit. So what is the benefit of counterparty in swap? 0.8%. So counterparty, obviously fixed rate will be cancelled by showing an inflow in fixed rate. So counterparty has to show its outflow. How will it show its outflow? It will borrow at fixed 5.8. Deduct its gain. Counterparty's gain is 0.8% in swap deducted. So it will show an outflow of 5%. And this will be an inflow for BurryX, 5%. Okay. Now, what is the net effect? Please see the net effect carefully. Now, if you talk about the net effect in counterparty, LIBOR plus 0.4 outflow and LIBOR plus 0.4 inflow cancelled, we are just left with negative 5%. Okay. And here, mathematical working. Okay. See, it was 5% inflow. It was 5% inflow and 4% outflow. So 5% inflow and 4% outflow means 1% inflow is left. 5% inflow, 4% outflow, 1% inflow is left. This 1% inflow positive is adjusted in negative LIBOR plus 0.4. In LIBOR plus 0.4, understand LIBOR plus 0.4 is LIBOR plus 0.4 negative. It's an outflow. In LIBOR plus 0.4, which is an outflow, if you adjust 1% outflow, it will become LIBOR plus 1.4% outflow. If in LIBOR plus 0.4% outflow, you will adjust 1% outflow. It will become, this is outflow, 1% more outflow, LIBOR plus 1.4% outflow. But since 1% is inflow, if this 1% positive gets adjusted in LIBOR plus 0.4% outflow, in 0.4 outflow, if 1% inflow gets adjusted, this makes it LIBOR negative 0.6%. This is just pure mathematics, that in LIBOR plus 0.4, which is an outflow, you adjust 1% outflow again. So 0.4 outflow, 1% outflow. It makes it 1.4% outflow. But 0.4% is outflow and 1% inflow is getting adjusted. Negative 0.6%, because then the inflow would be more. 1% inflow, 0.4% outflow, 0.6% would remain. Okay. And in this, if you adjust the bank fee is 0.5%, right? 60% on BurryX, 0.3% negative, 60%, 50%, 0.5 is the bank fee, 50%, 50 basis points, 0.5% is the bank fee, 60% on BurryX, 0.3, and counterparty 20%, sorry, 40%, 0.2. Both are outflow. Adjust this outflow again, negative 5, negative 0.2, negative 5.2. Okay. LIBOR minus 0.6 and then negative 0.3 makes it LIBOR minus 0.9%. Okay, please copy it now. This is the rule of swap. That first you need to cancel the floating, and then when fixed is being cancelled, whatever. Okay, now this is a problem that I have two questions now. Please pay attention before writing. Don't write now. Please pay attention. Now it's a general question. I have two queries. Swat and Bilal, both are of the same view. In the previous question, we deducted from Fitzharris. In this question, we deducted from counterparty. That means you want to learn, rote learn, that if in previous question we deducted from counterparty or Fitzharris, every question should follow the same strategy. This is not how it works. All questions cannot be same. Why do you people expect that every question has to be the same one? No, it's just following the approach that from step one, We don't know who will borrow what. You can compare with the previous question. In the previous question, Fitzharris took floating and counterparty fixed. Now it's opposite. So it depends on the comparative advantage. And whoever takes fixed or floating, first you have to cancel floating. Now, if you will be first canceling floating and then fixed, in the previous question, the loans were taken by Fitzharris and floating. So obviously the impact would be different. And now the loan is taken by Burry X fixed, the impact would be different. So just follow the pattern that first you have to cancel floating, no matter whoever is taking floating. Once you cancel floating, obviously the fixed has to be cancelled by other party. And note it, that's why I am giving you a third question, and I will try to give you 10-15 minutes so that the third question is done by you. And if you do it yourself, it will also be different. You will be all set. Okay. So LIBOR minus 0.6 is also a cost to the company. Yes, Bilal, in the first step, we will decide who is going to come first. Rob, you just need to compare option one. If one takes fixed, other takes floating, and if other takes floating, one takes fixed. Which option is getting the more benefit? What's that? Aswad, it's by calculation. It's maths. Minus minus is plus, plus minus is minus. That's basic maths. Okay, Swat, for you, it's negative 0.4 and positive 5. This makes it 1% positive. When 1% positive gets adjusted in this negative 0.4, this makes it 0.6 negative. Okay, now this is a question which is the third one and the last one we're doing. It's March, June 2019-20. Okay, you can also get it from ACCA website or Google. The question name is Lurkshall. Okay, now I want you to read this question yourself. Okay, don't do any part except swap. Okay, try to capture data yourself, try to solve it yourself. After 15 minutes, I will discuss the solution and hopefully you will be doing everything correctly. I don't have space to open the whole question. That's why it is advised, go on Google and write ACCA AFM Lurkshall. Okay, this is March, June 2019 Lurkshall. Okay, and do its swap portion. Okay, after 15 minutes, I will be discussing the answer. First, I want you to solve on your own. Also join the WhatsApp groups. I will share this question on WhatsApp shortly. Also join the WhatsApp group. I will share this question shortly. Well, Swad, I have explained it 2 or 3 times. I think you are not getting the maths correctly. -0.6, -0.4, and 1% positive would make it a loss. How will it's getting again? I don't know what maths you are applying. I think you better move on to the next question. We will see it later. I have shared this question in the group as well. If anyone of you is unable to find it on the internet. Banmi, you can do anyone, but you have to check both options. Put first one fixed, second one floating, second one fixed, first one floating. Try to see which is giving them more advantage. Okay. Now let's start the solution. If you have read the question. Now fixed rate and floating rate for both would be given. So if you have read the question, so the company is getting, I think, at LIBOR plus 0.5. So look sharp. Counterparty, LIBOR plus 0.5. And it's getting fixed rate. $5.6. And as far as counterparty is concerned, LIBOR plus 1.5, 6.1. Did you catch this information correctly? Check option 1. If Lurkshall takes fixed rate, 0.5% gain. And counterparty takes floating, it's 1% loss. So would be in 1% loss, 0.5% gain, 0.5% loss. Okay. And if Bursize takes floating, 1.5 instead of 1.5, Lurkshall takes floating, so it's 1% gain. Counterparty takes fixed, 0.5% loss, so it's 0.5% gain. Okay, so this is a gain, so that means this option is better. Lurkshall takes floating, counterparty takes fixed. Benefit of swap, I think, is shared equally, 0.25, 0.25. Okay. Okay, now obviously you just need to find out your workings. Lurk shell. You have already decided that lurk shell will take fixed, floating, and so lurk shell has taken floating. That's LIBOR plus 0.5. Counterparties was LIBOR plus 1.5. Okay, so lurk shell has taken floating and counterparty fixed. So fixed for counterparty was 6.1. And for here it's 5.6. Okay, so comparative advantage if lurk shell is taking floating, it's 1% gain, and counterparty is taking fixed, it's a 0.5% loss. So the net is going to be 0.5% gain, and this gain will be split equally between lurk shell counterparty 50-50%, that means 0.25 and 0.25. Okay, I hope you got the first step correctly. Okay, so people are saying that their step one was correct. Now move towards step two. Okay, loan taken. So loan taken is lurk shell has taken floating, LIBOR plus 0.5%. Counterparty takes fixed, it's 6.1%. That's interest. It's outflow. Okay. Always cancel floating. So to cancel floating, you have to create an inflow, LIBOR plus 0.5 inflow. And for inflow here, it has to be an outflow there, LIBOR plus 0.5. Okay. Now cancel fixed rate. Okay. To cancel fixed rate, this fixed rate has to be cancelled. This fixed rate has to be cancelled. So an inflow should be here. An inflow should be here. But to create an inflow, there must be an outflow here. So lurk shell would have an outflow of fixed rate. It will borrow at 5.6 fixed rate and deduct its benefit 0.25. The outflow is going to be 5.35. And then it will be an inflow for this company. Okay, find the net effect. Both of these are cancelled now. So the net effect is negative 5.35. Here, maths applied, 5.35 is positive, 6.1 is negative. So 5.35 positive and 6.1 negative. It's 0.75 negative. So 0.75 negative. Okay. negative 0.75, and this is also LIBOR plus 0.5 negative. So negative 0.75 and negative 0.5. This is not positive 0.5, it's negative 0.5. Negative 0.75 and negative 0.5 makes it LIBOR plus 1.25%. Okay. And the bank fee is 10 basis points for each, which is also an outflow. 10 basis points is 0.1%. 0.1%. Okay, so 5.35 negative, 0.1 negative. This makes it negative 5.45. And negative 1.25, negative 0.1. This makes it negative 1.35. Okay, any questions? Okay, so I hope things were clear to you. We are ending the class now, and we will communicate on group any further queries and stuff. Take care. Bye-bye.